Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection. It's Saturday afternoon or evening, or maybe even Sunday morning. I don't know, depends on where you're from. As far as we're concerned, it's afternoon in the US, it's evening in the UK. It's time to settle back on a Saturday, have some fun talking about music. And my two esteemed colleagues are with me as always. We got Mr. Steven Reid and Mr. Simon Bray. Welcome, gentlemen.
You made us sound a bit like Live Aid there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's afternoon in America. It's evening in the UK. Here we are for it's only the UK connection. Sorry.
We have to take these things in consideration. We got people watching from all over the place. And, I got to say, I'm getting like emails and messages from people all over the walks of life saying that the UK connection on Saturdays has changed their life in a good way.
We apologize.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a testament to what we do here on the channel, because I remember there was a time where people only ever talked highly about the Hudson Valley Squares because it was really the only regular show we had, and we just did all this other random shit. Now that we have shows every day of the week that people are used to watching, I get these kind of messages all the time from people who love one show, they will love another show, and it's just great to hear positive stuff. Yes, Simon.
You get messages all the damn time.
And we've changed people's lives.
We have. Hopefully for the better. Hopefully for the better. All the damn time. That is true. Simon's always quick to pick that up. So before we get started on today's topic, which this is another concert experiences week, 1988, 89, and 1990. Before we do that, let's show off our beverages for the day, because that's what we do here on the UK Connection, because it's Saturday.
What are you supping, Simon?
For asking. Well, I've gone off in full Elvis Costello mode today. This is Oliver's Army from the Milestone Brewery down there in Nottingham. It's a red ruby ale, and because it's a red ruby ale, I thought I'd bring out for the first time in a while the Skull of Truth.
Nice.
I pre-poured it. Correct, Stephen. Skulls just could not be more fucking metal if they tried hard. Yes, I'm okay. Yep, excellent. Good time. So yep. Oliver's Army from the Milestone Brewery. Winner.
So I must ask, because I'm a little confused, what does Elvis Costello have to do with all that?
Oliver's Army.
Oh, I'm not up on my Elvis Costello. So okay, all right. So
that was huge over here. That was, I mean,
enormous.
Yeah, I don't know about Elvis Costello, but you couldn't have avoided that over here.
No,
okay.
Now we won't play it.
Once again, the dumb American just ruins a segment as always.
Not playing on the radio, does it? Well, that works for me.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Well, I'm also on the Ruby Ale. There we go. And I thought that I would get one today that people would like to hear me say, because I got the Red McGregor.
There you go.
All the R's in my Ruby Ale is what I've got, and it's very nice indeed. It's absolutely lovely. I don't have it in a skull though, because I do have a skull, but I'm currently using it, so I just have it in a glass. So
got a nice color there. Very cool.
Yes, isn't it? Isn't that lovely?
Yes.
Yeah. This is one I've had before, to be fair, so I know it's nice already.
There you go. Well, what I have today, I have also had before, and I know it's quite good. And it's a great, spring and summer drinking beer. And it's actually from New York. It's from Brooklyn, New York. Okay. And it's from the Coney Island Brewery. It's called Mermaid Pilsner. A really good.
Would it be fair to suggest that you should put that down the hatch?
Yes. And lots of them. This is a mowing the grass, cleaning the backyard, hanging by the pool, manning the barbecue, dad beer.
Sounds good.
That?
Sounds good.
I mean, you can see this is just a good warm weather drinking beer. Nice and crisp, like a good old time Pilsner. A lot of head there, but you get the picture. So cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers indeed.
Oh, please make that the thumbnail.
I could try. I could try it. YouTube only usually gives me 3 choices, so it's not always as easy as it sounds. But cool. All right. So now that we got that out of the way, 1988, 89, and 90. That is our years of choice today. And as the 3 of us were discussing before we went live here, surprisingly, a lot of shows for me in those couple of years. And I don't know why, because I was in college and then just out of college, and I didn't have any damn money at all. But somehow I saw like every band that came through the New York area in those couple of years. I made it happen somehow. Steven was a little light because he was a little bit younger than the rest of us, and Simon's probably somewhere in between, I guess, or maybe not.
I might be lighter than Steven.
Really? Okay.
Reasons for which I will explain.
Okay. Well, Simon, why don't you kick us off then, Simon?
Okay. Well, this will 1988 will be really, really light indeed. Very, very light. However, it reminds me to discuss something I think Stephen mentioned in the comments with somebody else down below when we did Queen last week. Somebody said that they'd seen Queen and then hadn't hoovered up any of their material. And you were surprised by that, weren't you, Steve? Because that's the kind of thing that I very much do. If I, usually I've hoovered it up before I go and see them, so I know what's like to turn up. However, in 1988, me and Mrs. Simon, we were at university, and in '88 we must have been living in Porth, halfway up the Rhondda Valley, and I made the trip into Cardiff to see the Stage Dolls, Norway's finest. Yeah, and they were really, really good, and they were so good that I have hoovered up all this Stage Dolls material. Just let me get this massive pile from over here, because they genuinely were really, really good. Very, very much enjoyed them. Are we ready? Hold on. It's a whole 12-inch single. Yeah, they were. I enjoyed them that much, but I actually didn't buy anything else other than the 12-inch single "Still in Love," which does have "Soldier's Gun" on the other side, which is my favorite song by them. I definitely didn't later in life illegally download all the shit, but no. But
I think he should have been on the Hudson Valley Squares or in the Prague seat last night for the last 2 nights, right? That's a perfect example. On the bandwagon, quickly off the bandwagon. I bought a single. That's it. I never bought anything else.
Off the back.
See, now you spoiled those episodes for me because I've got them queued up.
We didn't spoil too much, but
spoiler alert!
You're going to watch them and you're going to wish you were on one of them. That's what's going to happen. So.
Really? Okay. Anyway, I saw them. They were great. I did not hoover up the stuff. I have no idea who the sports act were. But however, that was my first trip while we're at university to see a band. There will be a few more next time you come to me, unless I'm doing other years now. That's 1988. That's it. Game over.
All right, so let's stick on 88 and move over to Stephen.
Okay, so 88. My first gig was in 87. That was Dio. So 88, I was still very fledgling in my gig going at that stage, but I saw some decent stuff back then. My show and tell, Simon, because I know you like show and tell. I know you do. I mean, you make out you don't, but I know you do.
I live for it.
Pardon?
I live for it.
I thought so. I've varied show and tell this time because the tickets for the Playhouse, well, they all look exactly the same. Okay, so it's really unexciting. Okay, and you can almost take it as read that all of these shows were at the Edinburgh Playhouse unless I tell you that they weren't, because everyone played there because it was the only place to play. So the first band I saw in 88 on the 14th of April was Def Leppard. There you go.
Wow.
On the Hysteria tour, in the round. No, they weren't, because the Playhouse has got fixed seats. They were on the stage, but the stage had this fancy stuff on it. They were great. They were really good, I have to say. That was not quite at their peak, I would imagine with hindsight. I think that commercially, definitely at their peak. They'd probably already peaked, if I was to be slightly unkind. But at Hysteria stage, they were absolutely outstanding.
Attendance at a show like that? With how many people were at that show, you think, roughly?
What is it? Oh, the Playhouse will hold 2,000 and around there. I mean, the Edinburgh Playhouse is an old-fashioned theatre with kind of
Okay.
velvet seats. And, I mean, I was in the balcony.
Pretty small for Def Leppard around that time.
Yeah, but realistically, if you wanted to play Scotland in 1988, you played the Edinburgh Playhouse, you played a club, or you played a stadium. That was you. That's all you had. So this was 88 was before even places like the Exhibition Centre, which was really just cavernous, horrible concrete sheds. That wasn't even open at this stage, I don't think, because nobody was playing these places, which to me is a good thing, because it means that I saw these bands in a nice venue with good sound, is what I saw. And even back then, I preferred a show of this size or smaller to a really big kind of, not that I'd seen a big or anything bigger than this at this stage, but they were great. And Steve Clark was obviously still with the band at that stage, so I'm delighted that I saw them, you know, before his sad demise. So that was a good one. I was in the balcony, which was like this. I mean, you dared not jump. You could land way down there. And my brother was in the front row and took great pleasure in picking me out the balcony and giving me a bit of that. Hi.
So wait a second. Your older brother couldn't even get a seat with you down, or get a seat.
Oh, he was with his friend down the front.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're the younger brother.
Yeah. Yeah. See, he was 4 years older than me. So what will have happened is he'll have gone. See, I would be 15, he'd be 19. So I'm at school, he's not. Okay, so he'll have gone and bought tickets, and they'll have been front in the queue when the shop opened in Perth, and they obviously had good tickets for whatever reason, because they got what they got in Gold Rush. Whereas I must have gone down at the weekend, so I'll have got the tail end of what was left, realistically, because back in those days, if the local places were sold out, well, you didn't go to the gigs because you couldn't get tickets any other way.
Yeah.
You know, so there you go. I mean, and we didn't even go through together, I don't think. So there you go. That was that. So my second one for 88 is in October, and if I can fit it on the screen, which I can't, I got to see for the very first time this band. Okay, with this utterly ginormous, stupidly big program, of which I probably can't even. Well, there's some of it that's decent enough to show inside. Most of it's scantily clad people, and not just Paul Stanley. So yeah, this was on the Crazy Nights tour. How can you tell? And they played the Edinburgh Playhouse. We saw a unique show because they came out, opened with Love Gun, silence, absolute silence. And I thought I had a cassette of it, but I don't. I must have, back in the day when I had mini discs, I must have copied my cassette bootleg onto the mini discs, which I now can't listen to because I don't have a mini disc player. And I've actually written on it Love Gun, Power Failure, and then Love Gun again. So they went off. Well, they didn't even really go off. They kind of diddled about and waved the audience, and Paul waved his moon boots at us and things like that. And then they got the power back, so they started again. And that was a dream come true to me because they were the biggest thing in town to me at that stage. And I was busy telling absolutely everybody about the legendary stage sets and look at the inside of Alive 2, and we're going to see bombs go off. And I mean, the Edinburgh Playhouse will be on fire by the time we're finished, and we're going to be destroyed. There might be a tank on the stage with the drums on. No, we've got a wall of silver amplifiers and not even a logo.
Wow. See, that's what happens when you have the expectations way too high, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were great.
Well, that's all that matters, right? That's right.
And yeah, but I must admit, I got it in the neck from a mate who came along for the show. It did promise him a show, and we didn't really get a show. So from there, and I have done some digging today, not necessarily just for this. I was actually looking for something else entirely, and came across things that you used to get at shows that you don't anymore. So on the 6th of November in 88, I saw Halloween. And people used to hand you things like these little flyers and things at gigs for merch stuff. And I found a whole pile of stuff today, loads of stuff that I think, why have I kept that? Let's keep that still keeping that.
I never kept any of that stuff.
I'm a sad guy. Oh, honestly, Peter, you've no idea of the nonsense that gets about this house. And some of it has gone missing or has made its way to the bin over the years, but most of it is still my possession. Halloween were good, but they weren't great. To be honest with you, that was just one of those things. They just didn't come across as well as they might have done. It's the only time I've seen them. Please, 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 could they play Scotland instead of just doing a UK tour that consists of 2 English dates? when they're here. I think they might.
Yeah, I think if you get a chance to see Puppets United, I mean Pumpkins United, Puppets United, Pumpkins United with all the guys, you will love that. Yeah.
What's that? Good to see them in just over a couple of weeks. Yeah, well, turns out I am. Yeah. I am. Yeah.
So anyway, on the 19th of November, I also saw Cinderella. So we don't talk about Halloween anymore on this show. I hope you enjoy it, Simon.
You will enjoy that. I've seen that. I saw them a couple of years ago, and they were amazing. Simon, get ready for like 3 hours. I mean, it's literally like they play everything.
I think it's a co-headline with Hammerfall, so maybe.
Oh, so you might not get the full show. Okay, because I saw them. It was just them, but that's cool. That's Hammerfall.
I mean, I'd rather go and see both than not see it at all, which is what I've got. I'd rather see 3 hours of Halloween personally, especially on this tour.
Yeah.
You know, but there you go. So yes, Cinderella on the 19th of November. They also were a bit flat. They claimed that they were jet lagged, and subsequent tours would prove actually they were a great live band. But back in '88, we kind of left going, they were okay. Little Angels were really good. They opened. And then on the 20th of November, these guys came to town. Okay, on the Seventh Son of the Seventh Son tour, and they were just ridiculously good. I mean, we did get this even in the Edinburgh Playhouse. Okay, so I'm promising people a massive thing when Kiss played. Of course, it's the same guy I'm with. He's the Maiden fan. I'm the Kiss fan. And Maiden turned up with it, didn't they? They absolutely turned up with it. And they were utterly phenomenal, I have to say. And I did have a T-shirt of some sort. I think actually it was the Clairvoyant one, just here. It's on my merch sheet that I also got as well. So here we go.
That is the only tour I did not catch them on in the States.
In that decade.
Yeah, I missed somehow, I don't know how, because as I'm going to talk about in a minute, I saw every freaking tour that came through the New York area at the end of the 80s, but I did not catch. I saw them on the Somewhere in Time tour, but did not see them on Seventh Son tour. Well,
if you really want, I mean, I could even tell you the set list, Peter, because here it is on my cassette bootleg. Back in the day when you could go to a record fair and some guy would charge an absolute fortune so that you could get the worst sounding piece of shit in your life. And here we are all these years later and I've still got it.
Yeah, it's like, but I was there, so I have to have it, right?
Yeah. Who knows the last time that this played? I'd be frightened to try now. But there you go. So that's my 1988.
Cool. All right. So like I mentioned before, I saw a shit ton of shows in 1988. Again, don't know how, because 88 was my final year in college and I didn't have a pot to piss in, but somehow whatever money I had, I spent going to shows. But most of the ones I saw were in the local area. So there's probably a place you've heard us talk about here on the channel many times called The Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York. I guess I kind of lived there because almost every ticket stub that I have from 1988 was from The Chance. I mean, a ton of stuff, either that or from Long Island, because I was staying there during the summer. But as you can see, I mean, it's just like, well, I don't know how well you can see, but there's tons of stuff here, all from like 1988. And like I said, most of it was from The Chance, but I'm just going to name 3 of them, and they were right all around the same time, right at the beginning of the year. So January 10th of 88 at The Chance was Sanctuary, Sabotage, and Megadeth. And I remember specifically, I remember Sanctuary being really good, but I don't really remember too much about them. And Sabotage were amazing, and it was kind of a cool moment for me because my good buddy Chris Caffrey from Trans-Siberian Orchestra, that he got his big start. I mean, he was with other bands, but that was his first big gig. That was his first New York area show playing with Sabotage. And he was like all the way on the side of the stage, and he had his pink BC Rich guitar, and he had his little keyboard, and he kind of was off to the side of the stage, but it was just so cool seeing my buddy up there on stage. And they were great. It was the first time I'd ever seen them. And then Megadeth just completely destroyed everything in sight. I mean, they were fantastic. And this was the So Far So Good, So What tour, with Jeff Young on guitar, and just crazy. I remember being in the middle of the pit and everybody was just knocking each other all over the place. This was back in the day when I would get drunk and go to shows and do those sort of things. Right now, forget it. But I just remember it just being an amazing, loud show and just full of energy, and the crowd was just totally into it. So that was January 10th. About a month later, February 14th, Valentine's Day. And no, I did not spend it with my girlfriend at the time. I went with my brother to the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York, and saw probably the loudest show I've ever seen in my life. Can you guess who the band was?
Motorhead.
No, you're close. Simon, I'm sure you might know who it is. The loudest band ever.
Manowar.
Yes, Manowar.
Oh, yeah.
Fighting the World Tour. I remember walking out of that place and I couldn't hear anything. And my ears were ringing for days afterwards. But they were really good. There wasn't a big crowd there. But it was just so loud in your face. That was the only time I've ever seen Manowar, believe it or not. And still to this day, one of the 3 loudest shows I've ever seen, ever. So that was in February. And then about a month after that, on the 18th of March, at the Chance.
In Poughkeepsie.
There you go. I saw White Lion headlining, and White Lion were just kind of blowing up at the time. And, pretty big band. They had the White album. What the hell was that called? Pride.
Right.
Yes.
Is it not? Yeah, I think so.
And opening for them was an unsigned band at the time from New Jersey called Skid Row.
Okay.
And I remember like watching Skid Row and thinking, these guys are pretty good. And then like a year later, all of a sudden Skid Row is like the shit, right? But interestingly enough, like a few years before then, I actually saw White Lion here at the Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, New York, opening up for Crocus before White Lion were anybody here in the States. They had the album out, the first album out in Japan, hadn't been released here. And all of a sudden, here's this band opening up for Crocus. And I remember thinking, White Lion, never heard of them. They're pretty good, actually. And then a couple of years later, White Lion, all of a sudden, kind of a big deal. So those are my 3 from 1988. Again, saw a lot of other stuff, but those were fairly notable, and they were all kind of clustered around each other. So
you saw White Lion around the Fight to Survive time before they'd even probably got their US deal. Oh, wow. Get in.
And I remember thinking how heavy they were. And I was watching Vito Bratta. I'm like, holy cow, this guy is amazing. And like nobody knew who they were. Literally, everybody walked to the venue like, White Lion, what the fuck is that, right? And we're here to see Crocus. And it was kind of an interesting evening because Crocus filmed their video for Screaming in the Night that night while we were there. And they played like barely an hour. And then they're like, okay, we're going to close the show off and we're going to film the video. If whoever wants to stay can stay. And like, okay, yeah, we'll stay. And like an hour and a half went by. Nothing's going on. We're just standing around. So there are actually 2 versions of the Screaming in the Night video that are out there. One is the one with the storyline with the girl running around and all that kind of stuff. Then there's another that's a performance video. It's hard to find. It's on YouTube though. And that is the show I was at. And they make it seem like there's a whole bunch of people in the audience. But if you look really closely, it's like maybe about 100 of us that are right in front of the stage, and they have the camera crews all over the place. But I'm there in the crowd, but it's pretty cool. But yeah, it was fun night. But yeah, White Lion were great, really good. Back to Simon. 1989.
1989. I'm going to introduce a theme now called Simon likes bands, then goes and watches them again and again and again. It pretty much started around, clearly started in about 1986 when the first time I saw the Stranglers, but we'll come on to them in about a year's time. That's not really true. Yes, in 1989, that was the first time I ever saw FM, and I last saw FM about 10 days ago.
That's right, yeah.
That's right. So I'm, once Simon likes you, Simon doesn't get off bandwagons. Simon doesn't do that shit.
You're driving the bandwagon.
Driving the bandwagon. I'm the Davy Crockett of the bandwagon. I don't know if that doesn't work, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, but that I'm sure I've told this story before, but I made a major league fuck up on that evening. I say that evening. I trotted off out of our house in Cathays in Cardiff with my ticket, feeling like a really big boy. It's probably the first time I've been out for ages. Left Mrs. Simon and baby Benjamin at home. Really, really pleased myself to see FM. Yay! Because they just released Tough It Out, and I think it's one of the greatest records of all time. I'm right, please. I walked through town. I walked past the university because they weren't there to go. They were big enough to play St. David's Hall. I got there and oh fuck, it's the wrong night.
Oops. Oh, that must have been awful.
You're back soon, honey bun.
Oops.
Yeah. So anyway, following that, I trotted off, made sure it was the right night, bothered to read. Are you laughing? Thank you. I bothered to read the ticket. I actually went. I was actually in. Was actually like in the stalls, circle. Let's go with circle. The bit above, and it wasn't necessarily that full. Let me tell you, it was as far as I'm looking for, it was a challenging size venue for the boys, and
Okay.
they don't play that size venue anymore. But obviously they were great. I love them. I love Romeo's Daughter. It's only about a month since I last saw Romeo's Daughter, because once Simon likes you, Simon does tend to like you forever. And then weirdly enough, I stepped out of the Sea of Tranquility paradigm, but not into the You Saw Who, because this is just a bit obscure. But on October 22nd, 1989, probably I gave myself a birthday treat. I know I went to see a band called Lush.
Oh, okay.
Whom I have no recollection at all.
None.
Yeah.
No.
I'm fairly confident I must have liked the single girl at the time, but I really went to see the Sport Act, the Darling Buds. I don't like indie music, but I really like the Darling Buds. The first album, Pop Said, is absolute jangly guitar. Genius. Yes, I'm looking at you, Steven Reid. Yeah. Yeah. Not banjo, Stephen.
Well, I was going to say there's a fine line you see between jangly guitar
It really is, isn't it?
and George Formby.
Again, a band I went on to see a few times before they gave up the ghost. But I have absolutely no recollection of seeing Lush. I know that I did.
I remember the bands, but
Yeah.
couldn't tell you anything about them.
And you were sober the whole night?
Yeah. I did a Steven Reid. Didn't get hammered or anything. So yeah, then that pretty much covered it for 1989.
Cool. All right.
Well, 89 for me started in Perth. I've touched on this one before because Thunder actually played the Lesser City Hall in Perth, which nobody does. And they proved why nobody does, because nobody turned up. I mean, as I say, I was 15 at this time, and the whole audience was our age. And maybe the 4 local rockers wearing the leather jackets at the back kind of going, we're too cool for this, but there's a band playing Perth, we're going to go and hang out with the kids anyway. And they were great. I preferred Jagged Edge, who opened up at the time. But I mean, I've gone on to be a bit like Simon. If I like you, I tend to stick with you. And I've seen Thunder umpteen times, and they've only ever got better. But for a band to play Perth, that's an event. That does not happen. So from there, I went to my first gig in Edinburgh, and I went to the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh. And I will maybe show the ticket for this one, because the ticket is slightly different. Slightly different in that the date was obviously moved, because somebody thought the best way to show that was to handwrite the new date on the ticket in a style you cannot read whatsoever. Not a chance. I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but it was Monday the 23rd of October that I went to see Fish.
Fresh out of Marillion. Fresh out of Marillion.
This we're in, and he played so many bits and bobs shows around Scotland before and after this, but we're within his first 15, 20 shows as a solo act at this stage. The album's not even out.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The vigil's not out. Okay, so I bought this T-shirt here, which I really do wish I'd kept. The Fish logo part was gold.
Very small.
Yeah. Well, so now it fits me now.
Right, yeah.
You see? So now it fits. Now it doesn't. Okay. The hoodie's cool too. I wish I could have afforded hoodies and things back then.
Yeah, but that old logo was amazing. I always loved that.
Yeah, isn't it? Absolutely cool as anything. So yeah, I'm actually hoping that somebody can help me out here in the comments, because I have a memory that seems to have been disproved or disproven by what I've read subsequently. So yes, this is Fish, fresh out of Marillion. Okay. he has released the single State of Mind at this stage. The album's not out. Okay, so the single's only been out for about 5 days. So I've already bought it. He even played Voyeur, I Like to Watch, which was on the CD version of the album, not on the vinyl, which I bought at that stage. That was the B-side to the single. So this is where we were at, as he was desperately trying to play. When he would introduce a Marillion song, he would say, hey, here's the ones you know. Okay, that's the stage that we were at. So we got things like Punch and Judy, we got Script, Warm Wet Circles, Slange, Fugazi, and then there was loads of tracks that nobody heard of at the time, you know, which went down really well. And he closed with, well, the encore was Kaylee, Lavender, Heart of Lothian, and then he closed with Internal Exile, which is a bit odd, because that obviously comes a little bit further down the line. Now, I have no recollection of that, to be fair. He opened with Faith Healer, sensational Alex Harvey band, which I didn't know who that was at the stage, and I loved the song then, and I love it now. But my memory of that show is that Fish was front and centre with one of these kind of garish green fur-laden things that he was wearing at this stage, with a hair like this, going, I'm not going bald. I'm absolutely not going bald, okay? That's not a thing. There's no baldness happening here, right? That's not a thing. I've stolen that from Sean Locke, by the way, much missed. But to me, the rest of the band were at the back of the stage behind big fishing nets. Okay, and it was very effective and it looked really cool. But it meant that they couldn't kind of walk around the stage and come into the front. It was all about the big man at the front.
All about him, yeah.
Now, reading subsequent notes by Fish himself, that wasn't that tour. I'm 100% convinced that was that tour. So somebody, hopefully in the comments, can either go, you know what, Stephen, what an amazing memory, because you're absolutely right, or utter shit, you're talking utter shit. It's one or the other. So I'm intrigued to find out. It was really special, though. It was really special to see him at that stage. He was hungry. He was slagging off a certain other band that he had not long left, left, right, and centre, you know, telling jokes about how many people it takes to write lyrics and all this kind of thing. So he was absolutely on top form. So the next one for me was the 6th of November. I saw Motley Crue, fun enough, at the Edinburgh Playhouse. They were good, but they weren't great, to be honest with you. And these were the rescheduled shows. I don't know if anyone remembers the cancelled Girls, Girls, Girls tour that never happened. And then the reason it never happened was because Motley Crue were afraid that the weight of the snow on the roofs of the buildings in the UK with their lighting rig, their massive lighting rig, would bring the roofs down. So they cancelled the tour. That's why they cancelled the tour. That's what was happening there. All right. So when they came for the Dr. Feelgood tour, they had the hard neck to sell Girls, Girls, Girls merchandise. I mean, what sort of idiot would have bought that on that night? What idiot would actually... Anyway, so... You know, I even bought a T-shirt that's got the Girls, Girls, Girls album cover on it. What was I thinking? But there you go. So yeah, they were good, but they weren't great, to be honest with you. And then on the 4th of December, so I saw Fish on the 23rd of October at the Glasgow Barrowland. I saw Marillion. Here we go. Right. So chance to compare and contrast as soon as that. So 42 days after seeing Fish solo, I saw Marillion with Hogarth, who was not long in the band, hadn't done all that many shows, and they played quite a lot of the same songs. They played Slange, they played Script, they played Warm Wet Circles, Kaylee, Lavender, Heart of Lothian, and it was bizarre how different an experience they were. Yeah. Hogarth was really nervous, supposedly, because this was Fish's audience, and he felt that if there was any one show that he wasn't going to get accepted, this would be it. The absolute opposite was true. He was adored right from the start, and they did the thing where the glass plate came down in front, and he had the wired up gloves and played the keyboards on the glass so you could see him through it, and he's playing the introductions to songs and all that. It was cool for its time, shall we say. It's a bit kitsch now, but back then you were like, wow, he's actually playing the keyboards like this with a pair of gloves. It was all a bit Marcel Marceau, but it was different. And then for Market Square Heroes, which closed the show, I mean, he was climbing up the PA, he was sitting on top of them at the end and holding the mic out for everyone to sing. And it really was something special. And it's hard to equate, and he's a great front man now, but it's hard to equate the guy that he is now with that guy that was desperate to prove himself because
yeah.
nobody knew who he was at that point. And it really was, I mean, I bought a program and all these various things as you did, which falls out into some ginormous thing. There's a huge poster and everything inside here. I haven't looked at some of the stuff for years. You know, there's the full tour if you want. And it really was absolutely fantastic. That was the first time that obviously I'd seen Marillion. I'd never seen them with fish. I passed up that opportunity. One of those famous, I'll catch them next time.
Yeah, weird how you just missed them together, but then after they split, you saw both of them within a short span of time from each other.
Well, I mean, I was into them from an age where I couldn't, well, I mean, at that age, you're not going to go to gigs, realistically, when, you know, back in 82, I'm 9, when these kind of, when they started to come out. But my brother was already starting to buy the singles and various things, and the ones that I've shown on various shows, they're his, or they were his. He gave them to me many moons ago. So I was into them all that time. And why I passed up the chance to go and see them, I don't know. 2 of my friends from school did, and I didn't. And I will never, ever forgive myself for going, no, you're all right. There was no good reason. No good reason. It's not like I was doing something else. I didn't go to see somebody different. It's not like I was going to millions of shows at this stage. I just decided the best thing to do was not ever see Fish with Marillion.
Hey, I had the chance I was invited to go see them at the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York on the Misplaced Childhood tour, and I turned it down because I was like, Marillion. I'm more interested in Metallica and Slayer and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, now I wish that I would have obviously said yes.
Well, you and me both.
We're gonna do, right?
So there you go. That's my 89.
All right. My 89, again, there's a lot of them, but I picked 2 of the most, I think, notable ones for me anyway. One kind of by surprise, because in 1989, October 10th to be exact, I wasn't really much of a Rolling Stones fan at all. In fact, I really didn't even like the Stones. However, I was working at the time, I was living in Long Island, and I was working at a local cable company. And a bunch of the guys that I worked with, who were a little bit older than me at the time, because I was, 23, they're like, oh, the Stones are coming to Shea Stadium. You know, it was the Steel Wheels tour. Living Colour's opening up. You want to go? And I was like, I don't much care for the Stones, but sure, I'll go. You know, for me, in 1989, it was an excuse to go to a concert, get drunk, and have a good time with my coworkers, right? So that's what we did. So we cut out of work early. We hopped in the one guy's car. We drank beer the entire way from Port Jefferson, Long Island to Queens. By the time we got to the stadium, I was completely inebriated already, because I was not kidding around here. And I remember specifically, like we got into the place, Living Colour were on, they were really good. There was like 80,000 people. It was crazy. And Living Colour were really good. And I remember at one point, like maybe a quarter or the third the way through the Stones, so I really wasn't paying too much attention to. I was there, whatever, but I was drinking, having a good time. I remember at one point getting up and wandering around and going to the bathroom, and then running into like 2 people I went to college with in the bathroom of all places, amidst 80,000 people, right? But then like, okay, I've done my business. Time to go back to the seat and hook up with my friends from work. And I couldn't remember where I was sitting, and I couldn't find my ticket stub, which I later found the next day in my back pocket, because I do have the stub still. And I had no idea where I was sitting. That's how drunk I was. So I'm just walking around, watching the show, whatever. Finally, like maybe an hour later, I bump into one of my buddies from work. Where the hell you been? You've been gone for like 2 hours. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of walking around. So we went back to the seat, enjoyed the rest of the show. And I remember like the next day thinking, all right, I'm really hungover, but I kind of had a good time yesterday. And I'm like, I had a good time at the Rolling Stones concert. Yeah. Well, about 5 years or so later, I became a big Rolling Stones fan, and I still am to this day. So it took me getting completely polluted at a Stones show when I thought I hated them to actually figure out that I kind of like them. So, yeah.
Funny, Peter, you mentioning that not being able to find your seat. That's just reminded me the first time that I was at Monsters of Rock in Donington. My memory, can't quite remember the year. Maiden headlined. We're about this time, but not quite. And we were quite far back for most of it. And there was this guy walking about with a cardboard tray with 4 beers in it. And if this guy passed us once, he passed us 45 times. I mean, no joke. I mean, most people were sensible. We were like, do you know what? we'll stand next to the guys with a Manowar flag. They had a, the banner up and everything. We were like, that's home base for the day. That's what they've done. Well, we just stole their home base. You get lost, you head back to the Manowar flag. That's what you do.
Yeah.
But honestly, that guy is probably still there now. I mean, at Donington, there'll be motorbikes going past, and he's still going with these pints. I mean, you felt sorry for him, but man, oh man, did we laugh our arses off at him.
I wasn't smart enough to start thinking about that, like, things to look out for. I was just like, I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be back. Yeah. Many hours later, I got back eventually. I remember just wandering around the stadium. This is a big stadium, too. I'm just wandering around. I'm like, hopefully I get home tonight. But, I wasn't caring too much at the time because that's kind of shape I was in. But, the things you do when you're 23, right? So fast forward almost a month to the day after that, 11/11, 10/10 and 11/11, 1989 at Madison Square Garden in New York City, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jeff Beck.
Fantastic.
Which was really good. I was very well behaved at this concert, and probably a good thing. And it was billed as a co-headlining tour, but to my knowledge, I think Beck opened up most of the shows, but he got like a full headlining slot. And I remember this was the tour for the Guitar Shop album, which I like a lot. And it was just him and Tony Hymas on keyboards and Terry Bozzio on drums. And they were great. And they played a whole bunch of songs off that album and some old Jeff Beck classics and stuff like that. And then Stevie Ray Vaughan came out. And this was the second time I saw Stevie. And I saw him a few years earlier in Poughkeepsie, New York. And that was at the height of his, his substance abuse problems. And you could tell he was really good, but you could tell I had like third row that night. He was like sweating profusely and he just didn't look healthy at all, but he played great. But here on this tour, he was newly sober and new lease on life, very positive. He played a great set. And then at the end of the set for the encore, Jeff Beck came out and they played, I think, Going Down or something like that, which seems to be the song that every big jam session happens to take place on. But it was great seeing them both up there together. And I thought it was a fantastic show. And then like a little over a year later, we lost Stevie. So it was kind of like bittersweet. But yeah, there were a lot of others from '89, but those are the two like really big ones that I kind of remember a lot about. So back to Simon for 1990 as we start the new decade.
Indeed. In 1990, I was still at university, and I was still at Cardiff, Wales, seeing as that's how we're doing these.
I got to say, before you go on, so you've been mentioning Cardiff throughout this whole episode, and I got to say, I'm a big fan of like the old Universal monster horror films from like the 30s and 40s. And they always mention Cardiff in all those films, right? Because that's where a lot of that stuff took place, Dracula and Frankenstein and the Wolfman. It's Cardiff, we're in Cardiff this, Cardiff that. So I heard you mention Cardiff today. I'm like, I love Cardiff. I've never been there, but I have fond memories of Cardiff,
As Simon is proving, a lot of strange things happened in Cardiff.
I guess so, right?
Yes, they did. And on February the 3rd, 1990, something happened that has never happened ever before or since, let me tell you. First of all, I saw Mortal Sin, and they were all right.
I remember them. Wow.
Okay. They obviously came from the past, and which is where they currently reside. And then I saw the only band I have ever walked out on. I'm prepared to name them right now. Otherwise, this shit's a bit pointless, isn't it?
Yeah. We're waiting.
Would you like a clue?
Sure.
Oh, go on then. Yeah.
I didn't find them very epic.
Yeah.
Did you by any chance have faith, but no
when
more?
I went in, but no more. Yes. Oh Christ, no. Just no. Just really no.
Really? Were they just not good, or you just did not like them at all?
They didn't really seem to notice that there were people there that might have wanted some form of like entertainment or acknowledgement of their existence. It was actually, I think it was I may well have been the day that Epic actually charted. So maybe they had a couple of scoops, backstage and stuff. But they were just wanky for wanky's sake. You know what I mean? Just like play the fucking tune. Come on. We've got the first couple of albums. Come on. I know you've changed singers. Come on. Play something. Oh, for God's sake, I'm going. I'm out of here.
Did you stay long enough to hear him play War Pigs by Black Sabbath? Because I'm sure they played it.
I imagine that's probably where I walked out. Yeah, I just really didn't. No, they are one of the few bands that I didn't stick with. No, sorry. Comments down below. Yes, indeed. And then also on in 1919, February 22nd, 1990, at Newport Centre in Wales. Yeah, that's right. Newport Centre. It's a fucking sports centre. Seriously, I was quite surprised. They roped it, curtained it off. Sorry. There must have been somebody behind playing badminton or something. You know what I mean? It was a very, very odd venue. I saw Pete's favourites, the Stranglers, in 19, and they were crap. They were absolutely crap in 1990. Because Pete, now that you're a fan, would you think that the material of the Stranglers really lends itself to a horn section?
No.
No, that was their bright idea at that point. Fucking horn section. Horn section, and we're in.
Not that there's anything wrong with the horn section.
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Nothing at all, but just not for that band. And I remember thinking, Christ, this can't go on for long. And very shortly thereafter, Hugh Cornwell was gone. They released the 10 album. That wasn't very good. You can looking obviously with the benefits of being Captain Hindsight or Keir Starmer, you could see shit, but you could see that all is not well on the Good Ship Stranglers. That's the only time I've ever seen them and thought, and it genuinely was. So yeah, there we go. See, I am not a complete and utter fanboy that I can't call it as I see it. Nearly done. February 24th, 1990, at Cardiff, Wales. No dinosaurs or anything turned up. But that was the first time that I ever saw Steven's favourite, the Choir Boys. Oh. See what I did there? Because you don't like them. You don't like them. Even though Ginger was in them for about 8 seconds. Yeah. 2 seconds.
Okay.
Well, that's longer than most bands has been in, isn't it?
2 singles, and I will admit that I have them both.
Of course you know what Mike says. And again,
bands on them.
It's about 6 months since the last time I saw them. I don't think I'll be going to see the actual, whatever they call the Choir Boys as they are now, but let's put that to one side, because on March the 8th, 1990, Lemmy met me. Sorry, I saw Motorhead. And that's the one where my good friend Lemmy, Ian, as I like to call him, we had a little chat. Well, he said, excuse me to me. So, yeah. And I wouldn't say it was a very, how you were saying, Pete, that Manowar were really, really loud. Now, Motorhead are always really, really loud, aren't they? Yeah. And I am very, very confident I couldn't hear much for the day after, because it's not the biggest room in the world. They were a bit in the doldrums in 1990, but I do remember being kind of metaphorically pinned back to the wall. But I cannot with any certainty say it's the loudest thing I've ever heard. But I imagine it was pretty close. And do you know what? Even though they weren't at their peak, and I think there were 4-piece at the time, they were pretty fucking good.
Yeah, not surprising. So as far as Lemmy's, how does he rate?
Well, he's more. He kind of more barged into me.
Oh, so it was more like
he kind of stroked past me as he was heading somewhere. Almost certainly the bar, knowing him, I imagine. But he was out whilst Mortal Simmer on, and yeah, so that shoulder. No hand.
Now, in addition to the hands, we now have the shoulder.
But see, I actually think what really happened there was what Simon's trying to say is Lemmy shoved him out of the way.
I did say, excuse me.
There you
Genuine.
go. A gentleman. A gentleman.
So he was polite. Maybe not smoothest of skins, but he was polite.
Yes.
Maybe not the smoothest of leather, shall we say.
No, there you go. Yes.
Hold on.
Cool. Hold on.
Hold on.
1990.
1990 for me starts on the 26th of May. I mean, I've got that much show and tell. I've even forgot to show some of it, but here you go. 26th of May, 1990.
Aha.
Metallica. The first of two times I saw them on the Black Album tour, because they came back 2 years later. That's how long that tour was.
Yeah, it went
They
for a
came
long
back
time.
2 years later. And we saw them 2 years later in the round, whereas on this one, they were just on a stage. How dare they? But they, I mean, yeah, same again, a bit like Def Leppard. We maybe didn't realise it at the time, but they'd already peaked, in my humble opinion. The Black Album is good. What came prior is outstandingly good. But they played 21 songs. They did 3 encores that night. I mean, they encored with one Master of Puppets battery, and you think, we must be done now. No. Last Caress, Am I Evil, and Helpless is what comes next. And you look at each other going, oh man, that was brilliant. Then we get Bread Fan and Motor Breath as the final encore. I mean, that's just the encores. Insanity, you know? And they were utterly phenomenal. And unfortunately, my abiding memory of that night is getting out of the Glasgow Exhibition Centre, which is now open and is a horrible venue. It's a horrible, soulless, black, square rooms, horrible venue. I've seen many a band not survive the Exhibition Centre. Metallica did. They managed to have a sound that overcame it. And we came out thinking, 3 encores, that was amazing. The set was so long, isn't that brilliant? We've missed our train. Okay, so what do we do now? So when you're 17, what do? Well, you get yourself back to the centre of Glasgow and you phone your mum. That's what you do. You phone your mum and you say, Mum, are you busy? No. You don't fancy coming and getting us in George Square in Glasgow, do you? Yeah, okay. So, of course, this is back in the day of payphones. So I hang up. I presume she hung up. And she thought, well, I've had half a bottle of wine. There's now no way to contact us. She's promised to come and get us. I'm saying to the guys, it's okay, guys. Okay, it's okay. My mum's coming to get us. Everything's sorted. We're all okay. We're all sorted. We won't die in Glasgow tonight. It's all fine. In the meantime, my mate is off doing a pee down at some alley or a side road, and he's standing there with his business in his hand, sorting himself out as his car headlights go on. And he looks and goes, that'll be the police then. Puts himself back away and walks off. Okay, right, so we're standing in George Square in Glasgow, and an hour passes, and you think, well, my mum's not the fastest driver in the world, but at this time of day, we're getting a bit tight now. An hour and a half goes past, and you think, and we're good-looking young lads, right? This random guy pulls up in a car. Excuse me, lads, you're all right, it's okay, so we're fine. No, I'm looking for guys. No, you're okay, it's fine, it's all right. No, it's okay. Mrs. Reid sent me. Pardon? She said I was to look for 4 guys in George Square in Glasgow. She's only gone and sent a bloody taxi, hadn't she?
I'm sure you never heard the end of how much that taxi.
Oh, I mean, she bartered with a guy on the phone. Okay, so she did a deal before he went through from Perth to get us in Glasgow to go back to Perth. And the deal was 75 quid. Now we're talking 1990. That's a lot of money, okay? 75 quid. I mean, I can probably tell you what the ticket cost, but that's more than probably the ticket cost. Oh my God, to see Metallica. The ticket cost £10. £10 to see Metallica, right? So she spent more on the taxi than the 4 of us have to go and see the band and probably get the train through and back, although we didn't get back.
And how far of a ride was it?
You're about 60 miles to Glasgow.
Oh, so it's been an hour or more.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, the guy put his meter on because he clearly wanted to make a profit on it. Fuck him. He didn't get there. £82 on the meter by the time he got home.
So maybe I missed it at the beginning of the story. So how were you originally intending to get back home?
We bought return tickets on the train. So when you come out of the exhibition centre, what you do is you come out of the doors and there's this walkway that takes you over the kind of underground system in Glasgow. I know that's odd to go over the underground, but some of it's above ground, some of it's below, okay? So you walk over this, and it's really long. It's about, 300-400 metres. It's not just a short kind of bridge over. It's an enclosed walkway. So everyone is squeezed into this thing. So if you don't get your timing right, you're just stuck in this sea of people. Yeah. So we got to the station as like the last train going back to the main train station in the centre of Glasgow was leaving. So we knew by that stage, to be fair, we're done here. There's no way we're getting back in time. You still run to the station in the hope that the train's been delayed by a week, and you just know it's not going to happen. You turn up and there's like one guy sweeping the floor and you think, okay, we're done here. So that was the plan. Now, I meant to do a little bit of homework that I completely lost out of my head because I was at that gig with 3 people. Okay, there was 4 of us in total. And there's only 2 occasions that those 4 people have gone to see a band, okay? One was Metallica this year, and then the next one I think was AC/DC. Well, I know it was AC/DC in 1996, okay? Because I think that was the tour. That would be Ballbreaker or something like that in around there. I think it's that album. Someone can tell me what year that would be. And they played the same venue. But of course, I'm driving by that stage. When I was 17 in 1990, but this is before my birthday, this gig. So I hadn't learned to drive by this stage. That's why we got the train, okay? So for AC/DC, well, I was driving. So we had a laugh on the way through. We certainly won't miss the train on the way home tonight, guys, will we? No, we won't miss the train on the way home tonight, guys. No, not a chance. So we went out to my Audi 80, my beautiful second-hand Audi 80. That was a lovely car. Bright red. It was absolutely beautiful. And I put the key in the door and I went like that. And this bit of the key is in my hand and the rest of the key is in the door.
Man, there's a lot of these stories coming from you. You should not be going to concert, man.
Between doing In the Prog Seat for Tuesday and coming to do this show, I was thinking about Lewis's comment about not being willing to drive that hour, because he's used to gigs being close. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, man, oh man, all of these gigs are a bit of a risk because there's always something can happen when you've got to travel a distance. Usually doesn't. They're usually okay. But every now and again, it can happen. And just like happened the night that the car went, as Lewis put it, the carbecue, okay? We ended up, I phoned the AA and managed to bluff my way into telling them that I was still a member of the AA because I wasn't at this stage. I thought I was an associate member on my nana's card. She's been paying all this time. So they sent a local garage out, and this guy spent about 3 hours trying to get the key out of the door. He did not want to take us back to Perth. Yeah, that's twice. 2 gigs that I've had my car towed back to Perth from Glasgow after a gig in the middle of the night. And there you go. But the Metallica one where we missed the train and we ended up in a taxi, and the AC/DC one where we ended up in a van, the 4 of us getting taken out with my Audi at the back. That is the only 2 shows that those exact 4 people ever went to together in our entire lives. And we didn't manage to go home from either of them the way we anticipated.
They probably were like, there's no way I'm going with these guys again.
No, that's it. It's absolutely done at that stage. So there you go. So unfortunately, a fantastic Metallica show will be remembered for more car escapades or train escapades as it was on this one. But there you go. So my other one's from 90. This chap here, Joe Satriani, which looking at those tickets here, £4.50. I mean, they're giving this stuff away. Or maybe that one was £7. I think the next one was £4.50. Flying in the Blue Dream, he's got Stu Ham on bass, Jonathan Mover on drums. That's just, to me, that's peak Satch. He was just phenomenal. He still had lots of hair at that stage, and you couldn't ask for any more than that, really, could you? And that was absolutely phenomenal. And the last 2, Grant Hart's Nova Mob. Grant Hart was the drummer in Husker Du, and that was in a venue called the Carlton Studios in Edinburgh. And that's the only time I've ever been there. And that was a weird room. That was just a concrete rectangle, about 3 times the size of the room that I'm sitting in now. And it had a bar down one side, and it had a real mosh pit. Okay, so you walk in at the level of the bar, and it's just a concrete floor, white walls, low ceiling, nothing else in the place, nothing on the walls, no carpet, nothing. Okay, and then the stage is over there, but there's a fence between you and the stage, literally a chain link fence inside between you and the stage. And there's a set of stairs, just 4 steps down either side of the chain link fence. And there is a mosh pit in front of the stage, which was bizarre, really. Because you either
considering how popular thrash was at the time, that's not really surprising that some venues who were booking a lot of those bands would accommodate.
I don't think they were, though. I mean,
No?
thrash was popular everywhere, but we didn't have a scene. This is Scotland. Scotland doesn't
To
have
hear
a
that
venue.
would have made sense, but no places did that here, which was ridiculous because you had, people who are not into that standing on the periphery and getting, knocked around. And that's how the fights start out, because you got people in the pit who don't give a shit and people standing outside the pit who don't want any part of that, and they're getting hit. It's, so that would have made perfect sense.
But your problem was, though, Peter, that because the stage was, so you had, this was the height we stood at, then you got your mosh pit and the stage would stay this height.
Right.
So if you weren't right at the fence like this, if you were behind it, you could see nothing. Absolutely nothing. So your choice was to stand at the fence or go in the pit. Now, it was Grant Hart's Nova Mob. This was not a mosh pit. And it wasn't a high turnout. I mean, basically everyone could fit into this bit at the front, but it was the strangest setup I'd ever seen. I get what you're saying. It would work for a certain kind of show, but it was still a good night. It was an odd one, but it was a good night. And my last one was on the 14th of September in 1990, and in opposite end of the scale, it was Steve Earle and the Dukes, and he was touring the Hard Way album, which was his kind of solo, heartbreaking first one that he kind of did like that. And that was just a really good show back at the Edinburgh Playhouse. So that's my 1990.
Cool. All right, I picked 2 for 1990 because 1990 I started to go see a lot of jazz stuff. So I saw like a whole bunch of jazz concerts, which were really cool and fun, but I don't know how noteworthy to talk about here. So I picked 2 that were a little bit different. So the first one at the beginning of the year, March 23rd, was the first time that I've ever seen Yes, although not really Yes, because it was Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe. So this was right around the time where you had the 2 factions, right? So I saw them at Madison Square Garden in New York City, and that actually would start me on, a 30-year trajectory of seeing Yes many, many, many times in all the various incarnations. But that was actually the first. And I remember really, really enjoying it a lot, but it was really interesting. It kind of brings to mind your story that you were just telling. So I actually went to that show with 3 or 4 other friends, and we all lived in different places. And where I live at the time, and still now, I live about 70 miles north of New York City. The other friends that are with live like 150 miles north of New York City, so they're upstate a ways. And they're not actually, and a couple of them are not city guys. They don't really go to the city that often, right? They're more, country guys. They like being up, they're not used to city stuff. So I remember we meet up early, we take the train down there, and, we're kind of moseying about, we're getting some drinks, something to eat. And, they're all kind of acting like they normally would upstate, not in the city. In the city, you got to watch what you do in the city, right? So we go to the show. The show is great, and then we're looking at the watch and looking at the train schedules, because that's the one thing, you got to watch these train schedules, because this is New York City. You think the city that never sleeps. Well, that doesn't actually always. It's not always true, as you'll find out in a minute here in this story. So we're like, we got plenty of time. Let's, after the show, let's go to the bar down the street, whatever. It's like, yeah, cool, whatever. So we go to the bar, drinking some drinks, whatever. And we're like, oh shit, the last train leaves in 5 minutes. So we hightail it out of there. We run down to the train station. What happens? We missed the train. So we're like, Now what do we do? There is no train back till like 5:30 in the morning.
Steven's mum.
That's what I should have done, actually.
How much was the taxi that she paid for that night?
Ridiculous. So it's like midnight, right? Or maybe 12:30. I don't know, something like that. So we're like, all right, we're all young. This is 1990, so I'm like 24 years old. We're all like, around that age. So we're thinking we don't give a shit. We're like, all right, you know what? We're in New York City, the city that never sleeps. We'll just go to every bar in the city. We'll raise hell all night, and we'll catch a train in the morning. No big deal, right? And it was like a weeknight, right? So we're like, all right, so we're gonna go down to Greenwich Village. Yes, everything's happening down in Greenwich Village. We go down to Greenwich Village. The first place we go, we walk into this bar. And we're like, all right, we order a couple beers. We're walking around. And one of my buddies is like, there's no women in here. And we're like, and we notice that everybody's watching us. And then we look at the bartender, we look at the name of the place, and we're like, yeah, this is a gay bar. So we're like, all right, we're going to go somewhere else. So we went somewhere else. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not where we wanted to be that night, right? So we're like, okay. So we go to another bar, and then they're like, we close in 5 minutes. So it's like 5 to 1. And we're like, but it's only 1 o'clock. We close 1 o'clock. Like, but we thought nothing closes in New York City ever. The city that never sleeps. We said it all night long. We go into another bar. They were closing. Everywhere we went, they were closing. We went back uptown. We were in Midtown, right by the Garden. Nothing open anywhere. So we're like, it's like 2 o'clock and 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're like, what the fuck do we do? So we go into like an all-night like delicatessen, like a deli. And we're sitting there like, all right, we could eat, we look over, they have like beers in like the little coolers and stuff. So we're like sitting there drinking this terrible beer, eating like, little finger sandwiches and whatnot. And then they're like, yeah, we're stopping serving stuff in a little bit. We're like, fuck, now what do we do, right? So we're like wandering around, and two of my buddies are just like, they're just getting so frustrated. One of them is like climbing up the light poles. The other one's throwing garbage cans in the street. I'm like, guys, we're gonna get arrested here. We're trying to find something to do. There's nothing going on. So what do? Like a bunch of homeless losers. We go back to Penn Station, which is the train station right underneath the Garden, Madison Square Garden. And we go down to the waiting area for Metro North or whatever. And we all slept on the benches till 5:30 in the morning, till the first train started running. Can I tell you how much of a dirtbag I felt like that night? Like thinking we were going to have all this fun in New York City. We were like, who cares? We missed the train. And I remember at one point we're like thinking, maybe we can take a taxi back up to, wherever. And we're like, we called someone, and they're like, it's like $300. Like, we don't have that kind of money, we're 20 something years old, right? So yeah, so it was a really great show, but the whole rest of the evening was a complete disaster. So that's my one. And the other one I'm going to mention is at the very end of the year, December 15th, as a matter of fact, at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York, Judas Priest, Megadeth, and Testament. Painkiller tour, Rust in Peace tour, Practice What You Preach for Testament. I don't quite remember. Third album, I think, for them. Excellent. All three bands in peak form, and just kind of a shame that not long afterwards, Rob Halford left Judas Priest. But I remember, for me, I was thinking that was such a great Priest show because I really wasn't into the turbo thing and Ram It Down, and I was so into Painkiller, and they were crushingly heavy. Megadeth were amazing. It was the first time seeing Marty Friedman with the band, and Testament I always loved. Just a really, really great triple bill, which they did a lot at around that time, like in the early 90s, with those metal bands who were still playing metal at the time amidst all the grunge and stuff that was going on. So yeah, those are my two from 1990. So see, Steven, it's not only you who gets
all these crazy things we've done in the name of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Phoning my mum, sleeping on benches, going to gigs on the wrong night.
And the funny story is one of my friends who was at the show. Remember I told you we were standing in the delicatessen for a while. One of my friends who was a diabetic, and he was he he was, we were like in our early 20s, and I always remember him being a diabetic, and he had to take the insulin, right? And I remember at one point he hadn't taken his insulin for a couple hours, and he used to get like, if he didn't take his insulin when he was supposed to take it, he would go into like, weird whatever. So at one point he's like standing in the corner leaning up against the wall in the deli, and I look over and he's like sliding down the wall, and I'm like, what is going on with him? And like, oh, he must not have taken his insulin. So we had to take him to the bathroom so he could take his insulin, and then he was okay. But it's like, dude, what is going on? It's like, could this evening get any worse, right? So one of us is dying over here. We're destined to be sleeping on a bench. Crazy. But yeah, it was just crazy night. But it just goes to show you that we assumed that New York City, there's something going on everywhere, all hours of the night. Yeah, not really. Not
like Poughkeepsie, is it?
No, not like Poughkeepsie at all. I could have found something to do with Poughkeepsie, I think.
Yeah.
Even if I just had to pick my feet in Poughkeepsie, I could have been able to do that. So there's probably a lot of people watching wondering, what the hell is he talking about? Go watch The French Connection, folks. You'll know what I'm talking about. So Simon's like, yeah. Simon, this is what you have to do. This is your assignment for today. Go onto YouTube and Google French Connection Poughkeepsie, and it'll probably show you the 2-second clip of Gene Hackman reciting that line. So
you probably should come back to me next week.
Yes, I think that's probably a better idea. Yes.
Yeah, speaking of next week, the moment you've all been waiting for, favorite and least favorite albums for Saxon. And as the three of us talked about before we went live onto the show today, really, really hard assignment. Really.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Simon touched on this last week. We need to make this easier for ourselves. This is so difficult. This one's so difficult. There's so many albums.
Yeah.
And there are so many great albums.
Yep.
And I'm struggling to find the poor ones. I'm struggling to find the ones that I don't like. I mean, I will, because, Simon maybe find it slightly easier than me. There you go.
Definitely got one.
Yeah, see, I'm trying not to kick the one. It's going to get kicked, I think, though, because I really, but yeah, it's an interesting journey I've found doing this, and I might not end up in the places that I thought that I would.
Well, I mean, yeah, and we don't want to give too much away, but I think at least I can speak for myself. You almost want to default to pick the ones you think you should pick, because they're the ones that most people will pick. But if you've been listening to their catalog all the way through, you damn well know that in recent years, they're releasing some of the best albums of their career. So it's like, do you go with nostalgia versus recent triumphs? Do you look at some of those 90s albums and think, well, maybe these don't quite cut the mustard of the ones that bookend them? I don't know. There's a lot of ways to go here. A lot of ways to go. And trying to narrow this down. I mean, and I know that we seem to now have a tendency to, shall we say, smash the rules to smithereens. Okay, but trying to actually narrow this down to 2 favorite, 2 least favorite, and 1 wild card. I mean, we're just not going to, are we? I don't know. I have work to do yet, so I'm not. Yeah,
so do I. I'm not all the way through the catalogue. And some of the albums that I initially thought, no, not a chance. You put them on now and you go, yeah, but those 4 songs are outstandingly good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's lots of fun, though. That, as we've said before, that is one of the things on a personal level that I'm finding so much pleasure out of doing this. And I hope that people are. And I quite like this. We're giving people a bit of a heads up about what we're doing. I hope people are enjoying playing along with us, because rediscovering the music that we all think we know, but when was the last time I listened to the whole Maiden catalogue, the whole Queen catalogue, to 23 Saxon albums? When was the last time I did that? I have no idea. But man, oh man, it's so much fun doing it. So much fun.
Yeah.
Importantly, though, it's favourite, not best.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's key. I mean, the comments on the videos we've had are fantastic. There's lots of people who are, taking part and choosing their favourite or the best. And I'm really enjoying some of the stories that people are giving us about how they came into the bands and how they experienced the music and why certain albums mean certain things to them. I'm loving that under the Queen show we did, there are people who are backing Hot Space. That's the album that they came in on. That's the tour they saw. That's the music they know and they love. That is great. That's the right answer. There is no wrong answer. That is the right answer. If it's your favourite, it's your favourite. And I'll back your favourite, but I may well disagree with it. And that to me is so much fun. The shows we've done so far, there really has been very little consensus about favourite or best, least favourite or worst. And even the wild card, the choices in the comments have all been so wide and varied. It's great fun to read them and go through them. And we can't comment on all of them, but I do read as many as I possibly can because it's so much fun reading people's musical journeys with these bands. It's absolutely
and everybody's journey is different, as it should be. I mean, I've said this a million times. You know, we do get the odd comment from here and there who, you know, people like don't understand. Well, I can't believe how you would have picked what you picked. It should only be this. It's like, well, it would be a pretty boring world if we all thought exactly the same about all these bands and albums. That's not the way it's supposed to be, and it's not the way it is. So I think it should, just like Steven said, it's fun reading the comments and hearing everybody else's journeys and opinions, right? But we also have ours. So that's why we're all different. We all, you know, drawing from different places. We all hear things differently, and that's the way it should be. So that's why it's kind of fascinating. I haven't said it in a while, actually.
You know what's coming.
Yeah, okay. That's why we all like the taste of the same things too.
Yes. I have not said we all hear things differently in a long time. And I'm talking months. I don't think I've heard twice. Not today, not twice today, though, right?
Twice in the last minute.
Well, yes, but I mean before this episode. I haven't said it in months. I used to say that like every day. No, I haven't said it in a while. There is something I do say every day, though. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here all together.
All the damn time.
That's right. That's right. So thanks for watching, everybody. Tune in next week for Saxon favorite and least favorite album, along with a wild card, or albums, I should say, favorite albums, least favorite albums, and wild card. For Simon Bray and Steven Reid, thanks for watching, everybody. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content. We've also got the links below to our Ko-Fi page, our merch page, and seatranquility.org, where you can see wonderful written reviews from all three of us and everybody else on Sea of Tranquility. So thanks for watching. See you next week for Saxon. Stay tuned tomorrow for album homework assignment. We got Jack Toledano and Chris Canzaneri going head to head. That's happening tomorrow. And of course, Monday, the week starts all over again. Hudson Valley Squares on Monday, In the Prague Seat Tuesday, What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility new album reviews on Wednesday, Monsters Den on Thursday, Friday morning at the Fun House with Martin Popoff and myself. And then the three of us will walk back into your lives once again on our weekend show on Saturday. So once again, for Simon and Steve and I and Pete, see you all later on. Take care.